I said in my video the other day that Anthony Joshua appeared to be around the same weight he was against Dillian Whyte, which was 242 pounds. But he's just weighed in and he's actually even lighter than he was against Dillian Whyte. He weighed in at 242 pounds. I think this is a great, great look for Anthony Joshua. I think it's about time he lost all that excess muscle. And I think it's fair to say our eyes were not deceiving us, because most of us felt he did look slimmer, and in fact he is substantially slimmer. He's 12 pounds lighter than he was against Carlos Takam. I think he'll be much faster at this weight, much sharper, and I don't think he'll tire so quickly. And the question really is, why did he put the weight on in the first place? 254 was way too heavy for him. Even against Klitschko, 250, way too heavy. Why was he putting on all this muscle? I don't get it. It's as if he had a mild form of body dysmorphia. You know, body dysmorphia is where people look in the mirror and they don't see what's actually there. And when it comes to men, you find a lot of men who are into weightlifting and stuff like that. Some of them develop body dysmorphia, where every time they look in the mirror, they think they look skinny. So they have to go back into the gym and pump more weights to get themselves looking bigger. And you're thinking, bro, what are you talking about? You're massive, and you're thinking you look skinny? Are you mad? So I'm thinking maybe Joshua might have had a touch of that, because Joshua was doing weights before he was boxing. That's what you have to understand. Joshua was a weights man before boxing. That's always been a love of his. Now, I know Joshua in the past few years says he don't do weights. Absolute complete BS. He obviously does weights. And the fact that he's managed to lose 12 pounds in the past few months, 12 pounds of solid muscle, proves that the guy does weights. Or some kind of serious resistance training. If he's not using weights, I don't know what he's using. But he's clearly doing serious resistance training to build muscle. You know, that's what he's clearly been doing in the past year or so. Because to lose 12 pounds of muscle in a few months, you can't do that if that muscle is natural. And when I mean natural, I'm not talking about, you know, natural as in you haven't taken any performance enhancing substances. I mean natural as in its natural muscle size. Yeah, some people are naturally very muscular and they don't have to do weights or anything like that to have a lot of muscle mass on their body. Okay, now Joshua, I don't think is a skinny guy naturally, but he's certainly not naturally a 254 pounds of muscle type guy. He's had to pump up with weights to get to that type of size against Carlos Takam. In fact, I think Takam is a much more naturally muscular guy than Joshua is. I don't think Takam has to do anywhere near as much weight training to achieve the kind of bulk he has on his body as Joshua does. Yeah, and again, you can't drop 12 pounds of solid muscle in such a short space of time unless that muscle is not natural, as in that muscle has been pumped up through weight training. It isn't muscle that would naturally be on your body without weight training. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, Joshua's been doing a hell of a lot of weight training or resistance training to get himself up to 254. He's simply cut down on all the resistance training, which is why he's come in at what he's come in at, 242. So I think it's a great look for Joshua. He'll be faster, and then most importantly, he'll be more mobile, I think, at 242. Yeah, he'll be more mobile, and that's important against a guy like Joseph Parker, who I think is going to try and employ moving tactics. He's going to try to stick a move, get in with combinations, etc. And as for Joseph Parker's weight, he weighed in, they said 6 pounds lighter. I was looking at the weigh-in, and I was hoping they would show the the digital scale when Parker weighed in like they did with Joshua, but he didn't. They just told us he weighed in 6 pounds lighter than Joshua. They said the weight in stone, but I prefer to go by pounds these days when it comes to boxing. They said he weighed in 6 pounds lighter than Joshua, which would make it 236. So Joshua 242, Parker 236. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that's quite light for Joseph Parker. He might have weighed in lighter than that. In fact, let me do a very, very quick impromptu check of Joseph Parker's box rec to see if he's come in lighter than this before? I suspect that he has early on in his career. Let's check now. Okay, 242 for Joshua. Oh, sorry, 236 for Joshua. Has he come in lighter than this before? Yes, he has. Against Carlos Takam, Joseph Parker was 234. The fight after that, he was 234 as well. So he's been as low as 234. And actually, early in his career, he was 228 for one of his fights here. And 226. 226, I think, is the lightest Joseph Parker has been, as far as I can see here. That was very early on in his career. So yeah, he's not his career lightest or anything like that. He's about 10 pounds over his career lightest, but it's still lighter than he's been since 2016. 2016, he fought Solomon Hamano, and he was 234 in that fight. And the fight before against Takam was 234. So yeah, he's coming in definitely lighter than he was against Hughie Fury. Substantially lighter. Actually, 7 pounds lighter than he was against Fury. So that's a good sign, I think. Lighter than he was against Kajanu. Lighter than he was against Andy Ruiz. Lighter than he was against Dimitrenko. So yeah, good sign for Joseph Parker. He'll be coming in fast and snappy. But his speed advantage will not be as pronounced now, because Joshua has come in way light, not a little bit lighter, but way lighter than he has been for his past couple fights. So that will cut down the speed advantage, especially the foot speed advantage, if Parker even has a foot speed advantage. I think he has maybe a slight one, but it will be seriously reduced by the fact that Joshua has come in so light. And I think tactically in this fight, Joseph Parker has to concede that he's going to lose the early rounds. I mean, he's not going to go in there trying to lose the rounds, but mentally and strategically, they have to factor in that Joshua is likely to be at his most dangerous, his most explosive, and his sharpest early on. So they have to think, you know what? We need to make sure we stay out of the way early on, get Joshua to chase us around the ring, take chances, and overexert himself. And you see, when you look at the Carlos Takam fight, for example, the longer the fight went, the more Anthony Joshua started getting caught. Because not only do I think he was getting fatigued physically, I think he was getting fatigued mentally against Carlos Takam. Because Takam was moving so much, it was draining on Anthony Joshua mentally. And anyone who's boxed may know what I'm talking about. But the constant movement of Takam, I think, just threw Joshua off, and he kind of went into a bit of a trance. And while he was in that trance state, that's when Takam came in with shots out of the blue and managed to catch Anthony Joshua. So I think Joseph Parker has to go for the same kind of tactics. Try and move around, frustrate Joshua, not stay in one place for too long. And when he senses a little frustration from Joshua, jump in suddenly with fast combinations and then get out. And one thing Joseph Parker must do if he's going to stand any chance of winning this fight is he has to go to Anthony Joshua's body. Joshua has shown vulnerability to the body, both in the Dillian Whyte fight and in the Carlos Takam fight. Some of you guys may remember there was moments in that fight where Carlos Takam went to the body and Anthony Joshua did not like it. So Parker has to invest in the body. You see, when it comes to these high stakes fights, unifications, particularly with these young guys, they tend to go headhunting. They want the spectacular highlight reel knockout. They feel like to do maximum damage, I have to hit the guy in the head. They feel like I've only got a few chances to hit this guy clean. So if it's a choice between head and body, I'm going to go for the head. This is how these things often play out. But a wiser man, a man who is willing to concede, as the way I would call it, real estate early in the fight, he's trying to make an investment for later on in the fight. Okay? He's a wise man. And he's thinking the body is what I need to concentrate on. Take away Anthony Joshua's legs, accentuate my foot speed advantage, accentuate even my hand speed advantage. Go to Joshua's body. We've seen he's vulnerable to the body before. Go to his body, take away his legs, run rings around him. Then late in the fight when he's making mistakes, then stand with him and have it out. Because Joseph Parker does have the quicker hands, you know, when he lets his shots go. So that's the strategy I think Parker has to go for Whether that strategy will be enough to win is another matter. I'm picking Anthony Joshua to win. I think he's going to win the fight. Late stoppage or points. That's what I'm saying. I hope if there is a stoppage, there's no controversy. I don't want any BS, because the Carlos Takam stoppage, people, that was not a legit stoppage. I'm sorry. I'm not saying Carlos Takam was going to win the fight at all, but that stoppage was BS. I do not want any Eddie Hearn type stoppages. I don't want any kind of Howard Foster, Froch Groves 1 type stoppages. Yeah, this is a world championship fight. 2 undefeated fighters. I mean, you go look at Evander Holyfield Riddick Bowe fights. Yeah, especially the first fight. If you put Anthony Joshua in the position of Riddick Bowe and, you know, see the trouble he had Holyfield in, if that fight would have been happening today, that fight would have been stopped in about the 3rd or 4th round if Joshua was in the position of Bowe. Because he had Holyfield in, you know, trouble here and there. Howard Foster would have jumped in if that was Joshua. And Holyfield Bowe wouldn't have gone 4 rounds. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even in the Holyfield Bowe 3rd fight, when Holyfield dropped Riddick Bowe and hurt him very badly with a left hook, if Joshua was in the position of Holyfield and he dropped a guy like that, a guy who'd been beating him up until that point, Howard Foster's jumping in. And he's stopping the fight and, you know, at the earliest opportunity. I hope we don't get any BS like that. I'm paying for this fight, people. I'm actually buying this fight pay-per-view. You know, Sky allow people to buy fights on the internet, so that's definitely a good thing. So I'm buying this fight. I want value for my money. I know the most important thing on this card for me is David Price Povetkin. We'll do a separate video about that. But secondary to that, I'm still looking forward to Joshua Parker. I hope there's no BS. If Joshua wins, I want it to be a legit win. I don't want any funny business, yeah, from Eddie Hearn or whatever referee is going to be. So, yeah, I'm picking Joshua to win. I think he's going to win late or on points. But I think it's going to be tricky for him. I think he's going to find it awkward in there with Joseph Parker, the speed that Parker has. But I'm more confident now that Joshua's going to win because of the fact that he's come in so light. 242 is a fantastic weight for him. I hope he maintains this. I don't want to see him going up to 250. Ridiculous. What was this guy weighing 254 for? He's much better in the low 240s, mid 240s at the most. So, yeah. Let me know what you feel in the comment section below. Joshua and Parker. And as far as Joshua, you know, some people are saying Joseph Parker's too small to be able to get to Joshua. You know, Joshua's going to stay behind the jab and Parker won't be able to do anything. Joshua hasn't been staying behind the jab in a lot of his recent fights. You know, I know he kind of did against Klitschko, but that was, you know, he's fighting a guy who was known for a jab and a very experienced guy, so he was cautious. But you see him against Takam, he didn't stay behind the jab against Takam. Against Takam, it was easy for Takam to close the gap. See, some people were saying they think it's going to be difficult for Parker to close the gap. Well, it wasn't really difficult for Dillian Whyte to close the gap on Joshua. It wasn't difficult for Takam to close the gap on Joshua. When they came forward, they were able to close the gap pretty easy because Joshua doesn't tend to fight that defensively. You know, he likes to engage. So if he's gonna I mean, you know, Dominic Brazil found it difficult to close. Dominic Brazil's taller than Joshua. He found it difficult to close the gap because he is slow as molasses. Yeah. Joseph Parker's way faster than Dominic Brazil. So I don't think Parker's going to have much trouble closing the gap if Joshua fights the way he did against Takam. And I know Joshua's lighter, so he's going to be able to move away a lot more quickly than he did against Takam. But yeah, I don't know. It's not Joshua's weight so much, it's his tactics. Will he decide to try and keep it long and box a conservative fight behind his jab? If he does that, then maybe we could see him make it difficult for Joseph Parker and frustrate Parker on the outside if he does that. But if he decides to do what he did against Takam, even if he is 242 pounds, if he decides to fight the way he did against Takam, I don't see Parker having much trouble closing the gap and getting shots off. So it's going to come down to Joshua's tactics. I'm pretty confident Joshua's going to win, as I say. But I do think there are going to be moments where the Joshua fangirls, and there are a lot of them, they're going to be on the edge of their seats, clutching their rosaries and stuff like that, praying to God, watching the television through their fingers. There are going to be a couple moments in the fight like that, I think, with Joseph Parker. But I think Joshua will come through and he'll take the victory, whether it's late stoppage or points. I do think so. But yeah, let me know what you feel in the comment section below, people. It's happening. I'm out.